And representing here, Team Gunpack, in the bottom left hand corner is the red Terran RYUNG. Representing Team NV instead, in the top right is a blue Protoss player. Make some noise for SOS. Such a fan favorite, you cannot avoid loving this guy for the performances he has, for the way he plays, for these weird shenanigans he can put, and he may very well be the player, bringing yet another victory towards the side of Team NV. Getting a 2-0 will mean that the series will go in favor of Team NV, but instead RYUNG wants to overcome this, to bring some more points towards his team who's struggling so much in these early stages of this WTL. It's going to be hard. SOS, incredibly clever player. Let's see how these will unravel. Of course, it's SOS, so his probe is definitely a scary thing to see in your natural. In the end, RYUNG will manage to kill it, establish a natural, and be sure that no more scouting information will go in favor of SOS. We're talking two fairly aggressive players here. RYUNG being a very proactive Terran, one who can get a lot of stuff going on in the early game. And on the other side we have SOS, which is just a god in macroing. He has some incredibly aggressive player, such an unusual player. So, very curious to see more where the Protoss build order is going to actually differ widely from the usual. Because as of now, we just see some hallucinated phoenixes through the centuries. We're just gonna see a Twilight Council with Blink. Of course, Blink Stalkers in the hands of SOS can be very scary. But it's not going to be anything crazy happening, right? It's just the usual PvT build. Just something that you're actually expecting in this matchup. And with a player such as SOS, sometimes expected things can be weird. I don't know how else to say this, but there's still some aura of mystery around a player such as SOS. So many things can go wildly if he decides to. But as of now, he's going to establish a quick third base. He's going to get Blink. He's going to play it basically slowly, just to the strength of the Protoss race in this particular matchup. Hallucinated Phoenix gonna get a few important scouting information, but you see RYUNG already loading up a Medivac, trying to make something going. Actually, it's a pretty aggressive build from RYUNG. Already sending Marines through. Already on the map. He's gonna load his tank over here. While these Marines try to get on top of the Stalkers, Blink is not done. This could lead to a devastating situation. Of course, there's already a shield battery, but the tanks are sieging up. The tank is sieging up over here, trying to shell down this gateway. Meanwhile, Marines attacking the shield battery. Not gonna be there in time. Blink almost done. This is not gonna go well for RYUNG if he decides to overstay his welcome. And he does exactly that, losing all of his units into this. Oh my, that was not going to go well for SOS. But Blink finished just in time, shield battery just at the right position. And in the end, is gonna be a 1 trade for SOS. In that position, it was not something easy to do. I'm very impressed with SOS right now, being on the map with an army advantage, blinking forward onto the tank. He's gonna get the tank and the medivac, and now these Marines cannot do much to defend themselves. And with Blink Micro, SOS will definitely be able to save most of these Stalkers, if not all of them. And look at this go. SOS 14 worker ahead compared to his opponent with a third base already up and going. Beautiful tech positioning with charge halfway through, a Robo Bay incoming, and it's just a lot of Stalkers still on the map. First few zealots have already been made. An observer ready to make its way through the map, get some scouting information. While SOS may very well decide to actually blink into the main. First few winner mines are out, as well as a Raven, actually, for RYUNG. Alright, Forge out as well. Extended thermal lens on the way. SOS trying to bring all the pieces of the puzzle together to get the perfect Protoss army to break these opponents. And RYUNG, forced in his natural right now, cannot manage to do much. This Raven cannot make his way past the Stalkers with Blink, will be way too risky. But now RYUNG wants to do something, loading up those medivacs. Zealots getting on the way though. Observer will catch these medivacs moving. Can the Stalkers be there in time? And it's a blade forward on top of one of the medivacs. One of the medivacs will go down. Most of the Marines were unloaded, but they will also die to charge lots. RYUNG losing yet another trade. And that's a commanding game this far for SOS. Beautiful play from a beautiful player. The first few Colossi being produced. And Templar Archive on the way as well. SOS out-macroing, out-teching, and out-microing his opponent. SOS is very well positioned to punish any weird move outs by RYUNG. That's so many Widowmines though. SOS still has to be very careful. His Hallucinated Phoenix will catch a lot of things going on. But in the end, SOS will add on some photon cannons to defend his bases. He has a lot of Colossi out already. Oh, that's an engagement you don't want to take as RYUNG. No observer here though. Or is it? These Colossi are just melting the army of RYUNG. That's actually a great engagement for SOS. RYUNG loading units into those medivacs, moving to strike at a different position. But SOS is already on top of that. That charge wasn't that great. Meanwhile, trying to strike in the natural. RYUNG is still on 2 bases right now. SOS doesn't feel pressured to take a 4th. It's just gonna take more tech units, adding immortals to the army composition. Now with these many zealots and these 2 colossi, SOS can still very safely fend off RYUNG if he's careful enough. Oh, a big engagement can come over here into Phoenix Matrix and the feedback. Beautiful play by both players. In the end, the Templar will fall, so it's not that good of a trade for SOS. RYUNG, with almost a full army supply, is making his way through. That's not a lot of energy on those medivacs. These Colossi are certainly destroying the Bio army. But now RYUNG has set up a siege, and these Zealots have a really tough time getting on top of that Bio army with these many Widowmines out. A counter-attack is coming from SOS, stopping the reinforcements from RYUNG from ever getting to that position. SOS almost maxed out. SOS will try to break this with a wraparound. Zealots getting on top of everything. These Widowmines getting beautiful shots, but in the end RYUNG is sent scattering. That's not enough army, not enough energy on those medivacs. A few of them are loading to get into the main base. of SOS. Can they get stuff going? Oh, Stalkers are already in position to counter RYUNG. And they're definitely destroying this army. SOS on the right side, ready to strike. Is waiting just for the right moment. And I think that right moment has almost come. His army supply is so much stronger. He's just waiting for the first few reinforcements to kick in. Widowmine's actually burrowing here in the natural, getting a couple probe kill, while the Medivac loads up these two Widowmines to may do another bit of damage into the main, but SOS is almost maxed out. And this army is certainly way too scary for RYUNG to fight. Another round of Widowmines into the main. Can they do enough? But meanwhile, the big armies are fighting against each other. Beautiful anti-armor missile goes on top of everything. But these Colossi are just dealing so much damage. Guardian Shield keeping these Archons alive. And the army of RYUNG is being destroyed by SOS. What a decisive maneuver by the Protoss player. Spawning in the bottom left-hand corner is the red Terran player playing for Team Compact. It is RYUNG. His opponent in the top right, playing for Team NV, is the blue Protoss, SOS. His team is at match point. Can he be the one to topple Team GP for good? And it will be the 5th best of 2, which ends in a 2-0 for one of the teams in this day of World Team League. Quite an accomplishment. RYUNG has chosen what is probably one of the shortest maps ever, which leads me to believe he wants to play aggressively, he wants to play proactive, drop pull Terran plays. In the end, it's still SOS we're talking about. It's still fairly scary to play aggressive against him, as it has been shown in the first set of this best of 2. Probe trying to be a little bit obnoxious, trying to get something going, but of course, much he can do is get any scouting information of proxies and the likes of that, which is not going to happen. RYUNG will try to do the same with his SCV, getting some scouting here in the main of SOS. Getting a second assimilator. Oh, actually, it's a standard timing. I was baited by the observers. Meanwhile, SOS is sending a cheeky probe with a cheeky pylon here in the bottom of the map, leading me to believe that this is going to be some weird shenanigans coming from this Protoss player. Second adept, making it, being produced, or the first one, will try to get the scouting SCV. It's gonna be a kill. Oh, that's a proxy target. That's a very good position on a very good map to do this kind of build. I think RYUNG badly needs a Cyclone right now. Starport is soon to come. Marine production is at a fairly good stage. Of course, getting past that bunker is almost impossible for SOS. But it doesn't really want to do that. He wants to get a couple oracles and just get some damage into the main. Double adept, trying to shade past everything, get some scouting information, most than everything, and make sure RYUNG is busy on the natural so that he cannot actually fend off the oracles in the main. first Oracle goes through. Going right into the main while the second one is being produced. Pulsar beam activated. And here it is. Going into the natural alongside these adepts. Fighting the Marines. And it's actually a beautiful trade for SOS. Once again, SCV is trying to fight the adepts. But these adepts deal way too much damage right now. And it's going to be so many Marines killed in the end. While the second Oracle has almost finished. Losing both adepts is... all three adepts actually. It's kind of bad for SOS. But this second Oracle can certainly start making even more damage while the Tala Council builds back home as well as a third base. SOS once again establishing a lot of map control, a lot of pressure, getting a lot of stuff happening while RYUNG struggles even to get close to establishing a third. Charge is on the way after Blink it's done. Actually, did he do Blink? I don't think he did. I think I saw skip Blink, which is something. Alright, the Templar Archives are halfway through. And SOS still wants to get something done on the map. Still wants his opponent to stay as laid back as possible. Stopping his aggression altogether. Dropping a Revelation is SOS, actually 2 Revelation. To try and get the Widowmine. The first few High Templars have been produced by SOS, who's setting up what is in his head, a final strike. Final few units he needs to break his opponent. It's probably going to be Archons. I doubt he's going to start Storm. Oh yeah, okay, never mind. You just started Storm. SOS just does his thing. He doesn't care about those guys. He's just him. Here's a gateway to reinforce. Here's a forward position without the need to produce any Warp Prisms. But of course these Oracles are still keeping RYUNG so much in check, dropping Revelation after Revelation, getting full vision about whatever is going on, while SOS is 15 workers ahead, actually, yeah, 15 workers ahead. With a base ahead, a lot of tech, and RYUNG finally wants to do something, finally moving out. But I really doubt he has enough right now. With Storm almost finishing, it's going to be incredibly difficult for RYUNG to actually do anything significant. 4 more High Templars in the making. That's going to be a hail of storms for SOS. It's not like his army is really strong, it just has a lot of storms. Right now, I really feel like RYUNG has recovered from this. He's gonna set up this third base fairly uncontestedly. And it's a tough position to break. Of course you have the acceleration zone, but it's in a choke point. Of course you can engage from the other side, but you're very exposed from the tanks. That's a difficult position to be in. Here comes the first storm of the game. Here comes the second one. Oh, these High Templars are threading a little bit too close to those tanks. And they're gonna get shelled at. Still getting a few good trades, these SOS. Forcing a lot of stuff behind it. Dropping a Revelation over here. I doubt SOS has the numbers to break this. Oh, these High Templars need to storm for safety. But RYUNG just walked straight inside that storm. Beautiful storm number 5 for SOS. Keeping his opponent completely in check. Still not morphing those High Templars into Archons, even without energy. He really wants to win with those storms. He really wants to have as many of those as possible. But RYUNG is slowly but surely taking a hold of this game. SOS might have lost the initial momentum It is now in a little bit of a awkward spot. Of course, with a major tech advantage, which is gonna translate into the possibilities of breaking these forces with spellcasters such as oracles and High Templars, adding up to that probably disruptors or Xenophilia Lance Colossi. But in the end, even with the 4th base up and coming, SOS does not feel in command of this game anymore. This game feels a lot more into an even state than it did previously. And now that RYUNG is getting that ghost economy, it might be even worse. Once Shockwave EMP kicks in, those High Templars or Archons are not in a great spot. Dark Shrine incoming for SOS. That's the way he wants to shake things off. Beautiful anti-armor missile goes on almost all of the army units of SOS, which is going to get a beautiful cancel on top of that command center. Now he's fighting forward, getting on top of the tanks, but that's a little bit of a misstep for SOS, who's gonna take huge losses after that engagement. And it's going to be disruptors in the production tab, but RYUNG already has a couple liberators in the making, and now these High Templars may find themselves a little bit too forward. Another beautiful storm goes on top of that. The SOS recovers from a devastating engagement into a almost even state. But with Dark Shrine, RYUNG might need to remake the Lost Raven. Beautiful blink forward. SOS takes 2 of those Marauders basically for free. And now there's a lot of upgrades going on. Shockwave EMP not started yet. RYUNG for now just gonna have to rely on standard EMPs. But he's gonna have +3 bio weapons in a little while. These disruptors, of course, are very scary alongside these High Templars. But there's a fair amount of siege units already out for RYUNG, who can easily focus fire those disruptors, unless they're high enough in number. This Liberator sieging over here, very, very obnoxious. But RYUNG will establish a 4th base and will try to move out from the high ground on top. Oh my goodness, that EMP was beautiful. Still, 1 Disruption Nova will get 2 ghosts, which is already paying off for the Disruptor, which is kind of crazy. SOS currently maxed out. He's gonna try to move out, probably. Gonna try to make something happen, while RYUNG is close to reaching that position. Disruptors getting those balls on top of that tank and getting a quick kill. 2 more Novas and a 3rd one to come. It means 2 tanks are out. So much free damage that 1 Disruption Nova is gonna whiff, but not by a long shot. RYUNG dropping Revelation, SOS dropping Revelation after Revelation, and now Shadow Stride is done. SOS can start one of his shenanigans, moving those Blink Dark Templars left to right, in between those sensor towers, and in devastating damage. And now that EMP is available for RYUNG, it's not gonna be that easy to do so. Oh, that's a lot of disruptors. Oh, that's a lot of EMP, and that's a beautiful shell from that tank, stopping so many of these disruptors from doing anything. 4 of them are gonna fall, and that's a beautiful counterplay from RYUNG, storming down his probes. That's what SOS needs to do to save this base, and it doesn't even manage to do so. SOS completely outsmarted by RYUNG, and that's something you don't say that often. Ryung still not moving forward. That's a lot of gateways for SOS. He can replenish his forces very quickly. Oh, fusion core for Ryung. I think it is for liberator range. Was anything? Losing one oracle doesn't really hurt SOS too much. It needs a little bit of supply for those Dark Templars. So he needs to start trading. That one poor Red Templar was trapped in a very awkward spot. But in the end, it will still bring this army forward. That's a lot of tanks. These Disruptors doing their best at keeping the army of Ryung at bay. Not really managing to do so. Another drop from Ryung into the main, targeting down the production of his opponent. There's one High Templar trying to storm down everything. I wonder, with more Archons, what could SOS have been done? Well, what could SOS have been doing at this stage? The blue Protoss is going to try to move and maybe force a base trade. But that's not a good position to find yourself in after such a commanding early game. Right now, Disruption Novas, not gonna get a lot of stuff going. These Blink Stalkers blinking on top of those tanks, blinking on top of this mineral line, but there's so many production back home for Ryung to actually defend against this. This is looking pretty rough for the Protoss. Still, Ryung is not gonna take a good trade, gonna lose 15 of his supply. SOS again maxed out. He's replenishing those Stalkers and Dark Templars so quickly. Disruption Novas are going to connect on a bunch of army of Ryung, forcing it backwards by quite a fair bit. And now look at these Dark Templars go. They're targeting down the Nexus, while the Stalkers are targeting down the Liberators. Dark Templars are gonna blink on top of these SCVs. That's a devastating maneuver from SOS, outsmarting his opponent at last. And now Ryung is locked outside of his own fur base. Beautiful play by SOS, maxed out once again. Not a lot of scans available. 29 workers and the command center have been killed. And now SOS with a 30 supply lead is going to try to break that position. He's now forced a little bit backwards towards his proxy. His base is very close. But Ryung needs to make something happen before he loses complete control of this game. SOS breaking those debris to make way into his fourth base at last. There's so many Vikings out. That's not a lot of reasons to have these many Vikings right now. But SOS doesn't care about that base being shelled. He's just going to move past that army and force this base trade. He's going to definitely go in his advantage. He just has way more than his opponent right now, forcing even the supply block onto Ryung, who's now sending his army back home, trying to avoid this disastrous position. Okay, he forces the base trade, but it may be too late for Ryung. That's still a lot of DPS on this army. Beautiful Disruption Nova. What a connection for SOS. Ryung loses so much of his own army. This one planetary fortress will not stay alive for long. You can see it in the supply. SOS, even with a base trade, even with losing so much, is still so ahead. 9 zealots being warped into the main. Meanwhile, Stalkers blinking at this one more planetary fortress. Ryung only has the structures in his main base. Beautiful base trade by SOS with this one single Dark Templar chunking through the army of Ryung.